Last week's WNBA draft brought attention to the fact that the starting salary for rookie WNBA players, including top pick Caitlin Clark, is just over $76,000 a year. That's a fraction of the $1.1 million that NBA rookie salaries sees. So joining me now to break down what it means is Dr. Marcus Collins, author of For the Culture and marketing professor at the University of Michigan. Marcus, it's great to have you on the show. We'll take kind of a cultural take here, but it was fun to see the Women's NCAA Championship break viewership records. Some of the games more viewed than we saw with the men's games. How do you think that the NBA can keep this momentum going as that season starts soon?
The NCAA women's basketball benefited from a thing that we all know to be innate to humanity, and that's storytelling. The stories around Caitlin Clark, the stories around Angel Reese, the stories about Carolina, the stories about these different players and these different teams created for a great drama that we all wanted to tune in for. And that is exactly what the WNBA is about to benefit from, these stories. That's exactly what the WNBA needs to focus on, are stories, rich stories that bring us all in. That's what gets us connected. It's what gets us excited about these sports, not just what happens on the court, but the stories that surround it.
And you do actually have some expertise in basketball, especially at the professional level. So I do want to dive a bit deeper. I see that you did help launch the Brooklyn Nets, a franchise now worth more than $3 billion. How should the WNBA pivot into some of these stories, tell them holistically so that it can benefit?
Yeah, I think we need to start with the players and talk more about sort of what they represent, what they mean. Right? The Caitlin Clark story isn't just about her being a tremendous player, but it's about her shattering these glass ceilings on what women's sports are, what women players are, and really what the WNBA is all about. I mean, for long, what the criticism for the WNBA was that they don't dunk and they're not as athletic as we see in men's sports, but clearly people were watching the NCAA women's more than they were NCAA men's, so that whole argument means nothing. Right, but it's the stories that are going to get people to tune in. Just like the stories with Magic and Bird, with Kobe and LeBron, those are things that bring people in. And the NBA as an entity has been great at tapping into the meta text of the games, the stories about the stories that keep this sport moving, just being a 7 to 8 month time or play on the court to being a 12-month long season. This is exactly what the WNBA has in store for itself. Great storytelling to get people connected, to get people watching, and get people buying tickets.
You know, it's interesting. Even though we haven't seen Caitlin Clark dunk, those logo threes from the logo in the center of the court, I think caused a lot of fans to fall in love with her, and the viewership numbers following in the wake of that. Marcus, of course, now she's going to have a great post player just to focus on Clark and the Fever when she does start playing with the Indiana Fever. And we'll see if that sort of camaraderie that you mentioned, the Batman and Robin style dynamic of the story, does expand as she plays within the WNBA. What do you think this means for ticket sales and viewership? Is that something that can translate if they continue to hone in on the story?
Well, we definitely saw it translate to NCAA. So for all intents and purposes, it should translate to the WNBA as well. Right? People are going to show up to see how these things unfold. People are going to show up to see how the drama is going to play out. And the hope, the prayer for the WNBA is that this thing would mean that people will watch the games, that they'll engage in the discourse, that they'll buy the merch, that they'll show up for the games in person, that they'll buy tickets, that will move the barrier to the WNBA's salary, their salaries for their players, remove that barrier so these players can get paid what they're worth. I mean, we saw this with women's soccer as well. The U.S. soccer women's team, they were getting so much viewership, so much excitement that it was because people showed up that they were able to get the money that they deserve. So the people who see to all the people who see these stats about Caitlin Clark's salary and it being a fraction of what men's basketball players get, I say, don't get mad, watch the game. Don't get mad, get tickets. When you get tickets, when you watch the game, that argument gets erased. And people, these players, these women, outstanding players, will get paid what they're worth.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And certainly that's been the message that Clark has been spreading. Many people have said she is a generational talent. But on top of that, in her own words, the combination of being able to maximize NIL as well as social media, she has said on the record quite openly that she feels like that did help in terms of gain momentum. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. She's been able to capitalize on her personhood. She's been able to leverage her own agency to capitalize on the star that she is. Instead of just the institution being able to monetize on her greatness, she's been able to break out of the veneer of being just a player to being a person. And that's what we're falling in love with, the person. You know, we see her on Saturday Night Live and we go, she's funny. We see her in post game interviews and go, wow, she's humble. We see her articulate a point of view and we go, wow, she is really smart. We're getting a chance to see who these people are, not just Caitlin Clark, but Angel Reese and all these folks. We're getting to see their humanity. And in that humanity, we find connection. And that's really what we're sort of wired to do.
So I'm getting the takeaway here. Tell the story, shout it from the rooftops. Certainly social media has taught us that as well, that is a positive for any brand building. Considering your own PhD doctor here and background as a marketing professor at the University of Michigan, can you drill down on more details about what would be the right way to market and tell this story?
Yep. This is the perfect opportunity for brands who want to use their advertising to connect with people in meaningful ways, right? Think about when Jordan became Jordan as we know him. Think of all the ads. It's got to be the shoes. It's not the shoes. Nike. Think about I want to be like Mike, Gatorade. Right? These are perfect opportunities for brands to say, here is a moment in time, a contextual moment in time that matters to the American zeitgeist. And we as a brand want to be more than just the sugary water that you drink. We want to be more than the sneakers on your feet. We want to mean more. Here's the opportunity to do that. Get in the storytelling business around these players, around this league that stands for more than just people on the court playing basketball. These players and the stories that are happening right now around the WNBA and these awesome players are about women's empowerment. And we saw what it did to shattered records last summer with Barbie, Beyonce, and Taylor. Here is part 2 of that, chapter 2. Brands, get involved. This is your opportunity.
So we've talked about it from the league's perspective, the advertiser's perspective. What about the player's perspective? Doctor, how important is it that the players also align with brands that are consistent with their values and their stories?
Right. The call for players here is to think about, who are you beyond just a player? What do you believe? How do you see the world? What's the narrative around you? What's the story around you, right? Not just as a player on the court, but you as a human being. How do you see the world? And that creates the opening for brands to go, hey, we see the world the way this player does. So let's partner with them to tell a story. That this person becomes a proxy for what the brand wants to mean, and everything the brand is trying to signal about itself becomes a proxy to the player. And as a result, we crystallize some cognitive real estate in the minds of people, and we activate the part of the brain that exists in the chest that we call the hearts of men and women in an effort to connect in meaningful ways.
What brands do you think are getting it right now and leading the way on this front?
I mean, Nike has to be the best at this. Nike is phenomenal. They have been this way. Now, I'm biased because I used to work for the agency that created Just Do It. But Nike has always been amazing at telling the stories of athletes, right? There's an out-of-home campaign they did when Caitlin Clark broke the all-time scoring record that said, this is not a long shot. right? Of course she was going to do this because we saw it leading up to it. And you see it and go, yes, Nike, absolutely. And then people share that advertising, that out-of-home advertising, as a way to contribute to the discourse. And that's the part that consumers play in all this. That the stories that we tell, the memes that we create, the rhetoric which we enter the dialogue about these salaries become ways by which we collectively make meaning about what's acceptable for people like us. And that should theoretically turn into consumption.
I also thought the Nike ad on Clark was great because, oh, by the way, it was a long shot, one of those infamous logo shots, basically from half court. And so they got it right on that front. It was fun to see. Marcus Collins, author of For the Culture and marketing professor at the University of Michigan. Doctor, thank you.